Voice America. Live. This is Point of View. And now, Kirby Anderson.
Thank you for joining me. It is the Friday edition of Point of View, and I thought I'd start off by talking about something we have been focusing on for weeks, and that is the idea of voter ID. And, of course, the argument has always been from everybody from Gavin Newsom to Bernie Sanders, well, we just think that the Save America Act requires too much because, for example, I don't even know where my birth certificate is. So they had a promise the other day. It was called a pinky promise from Chuck Schumer. We could just have an up or down vote on whether or not just to have an ID before you vote. And there were 12 Democrats that said, yeah, we would certainly support a voter ID, maybe if we don't support the USA Act or the Save America Act. And naturally, as you might have gathered, every single one of them voted it down, 53-47, so they didn't get that 60-vote threshold. Illustrates once again that a lot of that was just hue and cry, but really was not a significant concern about that bill. But I thought we'd start off with that. But before we get any further, I want to go to the Vice President of Stewardship, and that is Jana Wadler, because we are going to, during this last day of Truth Team, have some people that want to come forward and actually encourage people to support this ministry. And Jana, what have you found out?
Oh, Kirby, we just got a really fun phone call from Dee White from Savannah, Georgia, and today is her birthday, and as a gift, she is giving a $1,000 matching challenge. So how really neat is it that she called in to celebrate her birthday with us to encourage other people? So happy birthday, Dee White.
Well, again, I will go now to Collin Lambert, who's been with us all week, and now we have a match on the table.
We have one to get us started today, certainly do. Dee in Georgia, thank you so much. $1,000 dollar-for-dollar match. Now is the time to call 800-347-5151. You can also go to pointofview.net, and you're going to be able to have your gift matched there. So double your gift, double your impact right now. It is the final day. The final 2 hours of the broadcast, and this is a critical day. Let me tell you, we are far behind where we'd like to be right now. And one of the things I love about days like today is it's a God-sized goal, and it's a God-sized need today. We're not going to be able to do it in our own strength. We're going to need you stepping forward and taking the helm and sending those gifts in as you can today. That's a $10 gift. That's a $10 a month gift. It's a $30, $50, $100 a month gift. And honestly, some of you who are able, who the Lord has truly blessed, we're going to need a $5,000 or a $10,000 gift to be able to make our goal today. So everybody doing something, that's the key. We'd love to see 100 people at least call or click at 800-347-5151 or pointofview.net.
As you might imagine, we have a number of other people that have joined with us today to answer the phone. So a lot of people are sitting by a phone right now hoping that you will make that call. If you've waited for the last day, it is the last day. So let's, if we can, go around the round table. First of all, Liberty with us again as the host of the Know Why broadcast and the co-host here of Point of View, and Kelly Shackelford, of course, the CEO and Chief Counsel for First Liberty Institute. And for those of you that get the First Liberty Insider, you can see the picture here of Gabe Olivier. And we talked about it last week without you, Kelly, but another win. 11 cases before the Supreme Court. You won all 11, the last two 9-0.
Pretty amazing. Not exactly what I was planning. I think that's, in fact, two decisions. The last two written decisions we got from the Supreme Court on major cases were both 9-0. And that's not normal, especially in these kind of cases. But this is an important case. Again, I think most people know about Gabe Olivier, who, came to his faith because somebody on the street, witnessed to him. And so he feels a responsibility to go and carry that forward. And so he's got a job and all that. He's got his own landscaping business, et cetera. But he goes out, and there's a big amphitheater, and he wants to go out and tell people about the Lord. And they didn't like that, so they passed a law where he could only speak in a 10-by-10 box, which is over a football field away from the amphitheater. And as soon as he walked out of the box, they arrested him. You think, in America? Yeah, in America. And so then he paid the fine. He didn't want to mess with all that, but he wanted to be able to come back. So he brought a lawsuit to say, hey, this violates the First Amendment. And the judge said, no, I'm sorry. Since you paid that fine, you can never have a day in court. You have to walk back out there and get arrested again in order to defend your First Amendment rights. That's not what the law is. But that's what everybody thought it was going up. Even at the Federal Court of Appeals, we had a 9-8 decision by the judges there. It was a special en banc sitting. Well, the 9 just got reversed. And the Supreme Court just said, and this is why I think this is important, people don't understand, it's not only a win for everybody who wants to share their faith. It's really a win for every person in the country who cares about their First Amendment rights and wants to have their day in court. Because the idea that courts could say, oh, you can't bring that lawsuit. I've got this rationale or that rationale or some reason to keep you out of court so I don't have to make this difficult decision. That's not going to work. And the Supreme Court said no. And so now we're not done yet. We got to go back into district court and really battle out whether is it okay for a city to pass a law to put you in a 10 by 10 box. And you might think, well, there's no way you're going to lose that case. So far, this ordinance has been challenged, and the Federal Court of Appeals has upheld it a number of times, and it's just so unconstitutional. So we're going right into the teeth of that. So be praying for Gabe. It's a good victory, but we're not done yet.
Well, let me come back to Collin, but I even thinking about one of the booklets we have coming out is about America's founding, and I'm just having trouble thinking that the founders were thinking, well, you have free speech, but only in a 10 by 10 box. I mean, it just doesn't quite work here. But these are the kinds of things you hear every single day on Point of View, and that's one of the reasons we're encouraging people to join with us right now, because we have a dollar-for-dollar match.
Great guests, great resources, an incredible host. It's something you want to support. You are enjoying it each and every day. You're getting great information, and it's your opportunity to give back. First of all, we can't thank you enough. Those of you who've already given, thank you so much. If you have not given yet, pray about it. Ask the Lord what he'd have you do, and then respond. 800-347-5151. A big thank you again to Dee in Georgia. We've got $1,000 dollar-for-dollar match on the board. You can also go to pointofview.net. We realize that, gas prices are up, uncertainty with the war, but we know that the Lord's going to provide for all of us, and we're asking today that you help provide the need here. 800-347-5151. I
mentioned those booklets. When I come back, I want to have Liberty talk about some of those, because there are different levels at which you can give. But I hope many of you will think about joining at the Truth Team level. That's $1 a day, $30 a month, $360 a year or more. And I know many people come in at that level, but you can come in at higher levels. And she'll talk about some of that in just a minute, because we have all sorts of resources and thank you gifts. I know you don't give to get, but some of these resources I think are going to be very helpful for you and your family. So as we take a break, perfect time to call 800-347-5151, 347-5151. Summer.
This is Viewpoints with Kirby Anderson.
Alyssa Blakemore explains why parents should read to their kids. That is what she does, and encourages parents and grandparents to do the same. Research from last year showed that fewer parents actually read aloud to their children. A dismal 41% of 0 to 4-year-olds are read to frequently, down more than 20 percentage points from 2012. She has found that Gen Z parents now regard reading as more a subject to learn than a fun thing to do. The tradition of reading to your children is unfortunately fading and comes with a great cost. Reading aloud not only helps improve literacy and academic success, but it also plays a vital role in the development of emotional maturity. A child's imagination takes flight while reading stories by Tolkien and C.S. Lewis. They develop the ability to identify and sympathize with others in stories. They can enjoy the humorous misadventures of Paddington Bear and London's Underground. There are many benefits to involving themselves in these make-believe worlds. She also acknowledges that once a child learns to read, the shared literary adventures start to wane. For ages 5 to 7, only 36% are read to regularly at home. That figure drops to just 22% with 8 to 10-year-olds. That is why we need to take advantage of the opportunity to read to them at a young age. This collective immersion in story, she explains, can stimulate conversations between parent and child on so many important topics. She recognizes that life can become busy too quickly, so it is important to make the most of the time you can carve out time for reading. Sometimes it will feel tedious, but the reward will be great. I'm Kirby Anderson, and that's my point of view.
Go deeper on topics like you just heard by visiting pointofview.net. That's pointofview.net. Restoring America's godly heritage. Point of View.
Hello, everyone. I'm Tim Wildman, president of American Family Association and American Family Radio, and we air Point of View on AFR, American Family Radio. Folks, Kirby Anderson and the team there deserve your financial support during this time. They don't ask a lot, but when they do ask, they need your financial support to make the ministry whole, to keep promoting the gospel and the truth about what's going on in our country. We consider them kindred spirits and partner in ministry at Point of View with us here at American Family Radio. So if you would, write them a check, give them a donation with your credit card, whatever you can do to help them keep the cause of Christ before the public on their radio program, Point of View.
Point of View. Restoring America's godly heritage.
Good friend Tim Wildman, of course, all of us around the table know him very well, encouraging you to, again, write a check or actually make your credit card available. And really what we're looking for are 100 clicks or calls, right?
That's exactly right.
Exactly where we are right now. And we have a particular match on the table.
$1,000 dollar for dollar match on the table right now. So far, $670 gone, $330 to go. So we've already got some action as we get started. In fact, Carol in Georgia, thank you for your gift. Pamela in Georgia, appreciate your gift. And Laura in Illinois, those just came in. And again, $330 remaining of that $1,000 dollar for dollar match. We have a big goal, $150,000. We've got about $97,000 remaining, so it's got to be a huge day today. And again, these aren't extras. I want to help you understand, these are not for extras. These are to continue the ministry moving forward day in and day out, providing just what you want to hear each and every day, and the great resources, great tools, all of that made available through your gifts. 800-347-5151, 800-347-5151, pointofview.net.
We're going to get back to Kelly Shackelford in just a minute. We've posted 2 very good articles from First Liberty Institute. But Liberty, let me just for a minute, I noticed one of the individuals that called in actually joined the Truth Team. But if you join at that level, what are some of the benefits?
Well, one of the benefits that you receive if you join at that $30 a month level are the booklets that Kirby writes every month. And they are just such a wonderful resource. They're pocket-sized. One of my favorite testimonials that I've ever read that has come in is from Bill from Illinois. He has been a listener and supporter of Point of View since the 70s. And he says that he's collected about 70 of the booklets, but he keeps them all. And when he has discussions with friends or his adult children, maybe a disagreement about an important issue in our nation, they'll pull out those booklets and they'll refer to them because they can be such a great primer on a really important issue with more resources in the back. So I think for homeschool parents, for anybody who wants to just get a little bit of education with more to explore, these are such a great resource and just one of the many examples of the kinds of things that Point of View provides.
So again, you get the Outlook for a monthly gift, certainly the booklets for $30 or more a month, as well as this golf umbrella, which has got the Point of View logo on it and shrinks down to what you said, 22 inches. 22 inches.
It's compact.
And then, of course, for the $50 a month, that's something right in front of you right now.
Yes, we have these really nice bookends. They have a quote from the preamble to the Declaration of Independence. We hold these truths to be self-evident, and so it's a really beautiful. I like bookends. I love collecting books. So if you are a book lover out there and you have a bookshelf and you like pretty bookends on your bookshelves, these are great.
Yes, and also, of course, another book that's available as well. You can find out more about that on the website. I would encourage you to go there if you would like to see what those are. Again, those are resources we'd like to send to you as a thank you. But Kelly, I wanted to come to you because it seems like every time I read one of your stories, I think, this has got to be a joke. You got to be putting us on. But no, an individual in a coffee shop in Kentucky, of all places, was specifically asked her opinion about something, gives her opinion, gets fired. But that's true.
This is, I think this is something that could happen to anybody.
Yes.
And that's why, it's not like a huge precedent-setting case, but it hit one of the top, on Fox yesterday, it was one of the top, viewed stories. And really what happened is, I think it's fairly obvious, you had an employee try to set up another employee. They knew that this young lady was going to a Christian school, and when they found that out at work the next time, they began to ask questions, and not just regular Christian questions, but questions sort of about controversial issues like what they believed about sexuality and all that. And so, she answered the question very graciously, but biblically, and the employee was taping her the whole time, which shows you what's going on.
Right.
The thing that's shocking to me is that they gave that to the employer, and the employer's response was to fire the Christian employee for answering the questions. What should happen, and maybe will eventually happen, is they should be firing the employee for trying to do something like this. Look, it's real simple. In this country, we have protection for religious freedom in the workplace. If you're a business that has, 15 or more employees, then you cannot discriminate on the basis of religion. And in fact, you have to affirmatively accommodate the religious beliefs of your employees, because we don't want to live in a country where it's either your faith or your paycheck. And so this coffee shop is in big trouble. They violated federal law, and we're going to follow through until Paige gets her job back and gets reimbursed for what they've done to her.
I just want to applaud Paige, because how intimidating might that have been, I imagine, to know that you're being put in the spotlight by somebody who is unfortunately being unfriendly to your values, but to answer biblically and stick by her values, and then to go even a step further and defend religious liberty by speaking out about it. So I gain a lot of hope hearing about First Liberty's victories, but also just your clients, because they had to take that first step of being brave to stand up for their beliefs. And you wouldn't be having those victories if they weren't willing to stand up for what they believed in.
Yeah, and the interesting thing, the way we found out about this was really unusual. What happened is, when Paige was fired, she went on, online with a group of people that she knew, and she said, "I've just been fired. Does anybody have any extra work?" Because she's trying to pay for her college and things, and she said, she was wanting to be a nanny to help somebody, and somebody that knew us that was looking for somebody that would be a nanny saw this. And said, "Whoa, she needs to know about you guys." Wow. And that's how the connection. So she had no idea, and this is so typical. The average person doesn't know that they can get help. They think, well, gosh, I don't have money to go out and hire a team of attorneys, and that's why First Liberty is here. If it's a religious liberty issue, we want to make sure that's protected, and so that's how we got connected to Paige. And what she's doing now is not only going to affect her, but lots of other people.
Sure.
And so good for her for standing up on behalf of so many others.
Yeah. Collin, I was just thinking about the fact that we've heard stories in some cases about how people got involved with First Liberty because they've heard about First Liberty on Point of View.
Yeah, and I love that. And I love the stories that we hear related to these cases, because we hear really what you don't often hear on the news. We're kind of hearing the behind the scenes of how it all comes about. And I think that's helpful, too, in knowing how to pray and understanding how our government works and the judicial system. That's all important as well. And you're not going to find that anywhere else. You're finding it here on Point of View. It is Truth Team Week. It is the final day of Truth Team Week. We're looking for 100 people to participate, either calls or clicks. We've already had 12, so we're down to 88 to go. You're doing great. 800-347-5151. We have a $1,000 dollar-for-dollar match on the board. $900 in, only $100 to go. Maybe you right now can take that $100 and knock it off the board and let us continue to move forward. 800-347-5151 or pointofview.net.
Collin was talking about some of the topics that we cover here that you don't hear elsewhere. After the break, we're going to talk about one. You have noticed that there have been violent agitators showing up at churches and synagogues. So we have a piece here from First Liberty really asking for a federal court protection. And then also one from Ben Shapiro, Are We Safe Anymore?, which gets us into some of those issues. Of course, the Senate the other night voted to maybe allow at least the TSA to go back, but that's going to be a vote in the House. But still, ICE and border security aren't there, and so we're going to be talking about that. So whether it's the border or whether it's your church, since I go to a church where somebody decided to rush the stage, and I've been in situations before on college campuses where people have rushed the stage, I can certainly relate to that, but you know what? Could come to your church as well. So we're going to talk about that. Give us a call. 800-347-5151, 1-800-347-5151, or pointofview.net.
Okay, so have you joined the Truth Team yet? Point of View needs to hear from you. It is the final day of our Spring Truth Team Week, and we need to reach our $150,000 goal today. As you know, it's America's 250th anniversary this year, but to restore the godly heritage on which our great nation was founded, we need to act right now to help Americans regain a biblical worldview. When you join the Truth Team, you'll be one of Point of View's core supporters, equipping Americans everywhere with a biblical perspective on current events and issues that affect our daily life. Please, we need to hear from you today. Join the Truth Team, help us reach our goal, and most importantly, help restore America's godly heritage. Visit us right now at pointofview.net or call 1-800-347-5151. That's pointofview.net and toll free 1-800-347-5151.
Point of View will continue after this. You are listening to Point of View. The opinions expressed on Point of View do not necessarily reflect the views of the management or staff of this station. And now, here again is Kirby Anderson.
Back once again, we are encouraged by the response, but again, we want to mention the fact that we're in the midst of our Truth Team, the last day of Truth Team, and we have in studio with us today Kelly Shackelford. We'll get back to him in just a minute. Liberty is here as well. But Collin, I wanted to come to you because I believe we've met the match.
We have met the match. $1,000 was given by Dee in Georgia, and it was a dollar-for-dollar match, and we just met that. So grateful to Chris and Sandy and Bradley and Jeff and Doris and Jerry and $1,200 for a dollar-for-dollar match. So $1,200, dollar for dollar, starts right now. And let me just remind you, day one, we only had 2 matches. There were no other matches available. These are folks who've come along this week and said, I want to encourage others to give. So here's your opportunity to get your gift doubled, your impact doubled. It's a $1,200 dollar-for-dollar match. It's underway right now. 800-347-5151. Pointofview.net. We've got 17 callers in so far. We're looking for 83 more this hour and next. So call or click right now.
Let me again come back to a few things that we have. A second article, it's a press release from our good friends at First Liberty. California Christians and Jews ask federal court for protection after attacks by violent agitators. Of course, this is just California, but some of you in other parts of the country where we broadcast have also told us stories about protests outside of your church, or of course we've seen lots of protests outside of synagogues as well. And we've also have a piece by Ben Shapiro, Are We Safe Anymore? Now, he's talking more about safety in terms of the people we let in, but wherever we look, this issue of safety has become a big issue, and I never anticipated First Liberty would have to deal with that, but that's where you find yourselves.
Yeah, I mean, most people saw the invasion and disruption of the church in Minnesota, or the Don Lemon thing, and thought, well, that was crazy, but that's not happening anywhere else. Well, we already had our case before.
Yes.
The Don Lemon invasion. By the way, a lot of people don't know that wasn't just what you saw on video. What you saw on video, which is horrible enough, was intentionally screaming and disrupting a church service. But they also, literally, these are adults, screamed in the face of children that your parents are going to hell. They actually, one of the kids, this is in the indictment, one of the kids, they kept the parents from getting to Sunday school to get their children. And one of the little boys, when he came out, said he thought that both of his parents were dead because that's what they're used to when somebody invades a church, right? And so it's just, there's going to be lifetime trauma for what they did. And then for, Don Lemon to say it's some sort of First Amendment right, it's not only not a First Amendment right, it violated the First Amendment rights of the people in that building. And it is a crime. It is a federal crime. And that's why they're being prosecuted. It's also a civil violation. And so there will be a civil lawsuit against these people as well. And that's what we have in our case, Mission Church. Why are they being attacked? Are they connected with ICE like in Minnesota? No. It's because they reached out to the Jewish community and tried to create a relationship to people who were Jewish in the community, and some people didn't like that. They showed up and disrupted the church service again, and this is right outside of San Diego. And they even with bullhorns. The police had to help people through a line of protesters. They were yelling really incredibly vile things to the children. So this is happening now. Again, that violates federal law, and we're moving to make sure that this is going to stop. But it's something we didn't used to see, and we're seeing now. And if you don't. You need to be prepared. I think a lot of people understand security, but there's security for more than just a shooter. There's security for these things as well.
I read the press release, and I thought it was so ironic that one of the things they were shouting was that the church members were Nazis.
Yeah.
And they're disrupting because they're upset that the Christian church, which I think is doing exactly what they should be doing, reaching out to the Jewish community, especially at a time when we're seeing so much anti-Semitism. I happened to look up the group that was doing that as well and noticed they have a weekly vigil for Palestine there in California. So if that tells you anything about where their leanings are. But yeah, it's scary. As a mom, I think about this. I try not to live in fear, of course, because we know that the worst cases tend to be amplified in the media, but you are seeing more of these kinds of attacks. It's just regular churches where people are going with their kids thinking that everything is going to be normal, but we're kind of having to shift the way we think about moving around in public now.
Might just mention, too, if you do go to First Liberty, this is their First Liberty Insider from a while back when they're talking about the fact that your clients have testified in the National Religious Liberty Commission, first and only one, and you've been on that, and again are going to give the recommendations by the National Day of Prayer, so very significant ways you can learn more about that. But, Collin, just for a moment, let's break and recognize that we have $1,200 on the table, right?
Final day of Truth Team Week, and we've only got about an hour and 20 minutes remaining in the live portion of this event. So it's very critical that everybody that's listening, that you're engaged, that you do something. We want everybody to be a partner of this ministry. Let me also say this. If the Lord has laid a larger number on your heart, if you're one of those people who have the means to give a larger gift, a $5,000 or a $10,000, I can tell you right now, we're going to need some of those to get to this goal by the end of the week here. And so we're in that point. We're at that point. And if you've been waiting, if you're like me, sometimes Procrastinators Anonymous, today's your day. Get involved. 800-347-5151. 800-347-5151 or pointofview.net.
You know, Liberty, one of the things we have here is by Ben Shapiro, just reminding us of this 18-year-old Sheridan Gorman, student at Loyola University, who was shot and killed by an individual, which was an illegal alien. The Loyola press, the, if you will, school newspaper referred to him as an illegal alien, and boy, the world crashed down on them. You had an individual that was on the Chicago City Council who had the comment, well, she was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. And the reaction to this, which I think is justifiable, is, have we just lost our mind? And as Ben Shapiro asked, are we safe anymore?
I thought we weren't supposed to blame the victim, but honestly, that comment sounds a lot like victim blaming to me, instead of putting the blame on the person who perpetrated the crime and on the system that allowed him to escape accountability when he had been arrested in the past and could have been deported. So, you know, one of the things that I think about is that there are people around the world who live with the threat of violence walking around every single day. And that is just a normal part of life. And we have been so blessed and privileged in America that we have not had to, in general, live with that reality. And so I think people should think about that and say, that's not by accident. It's because we have certain laws in place, because we have the kind of moral foundation that we do. And if we don't protect that, then we will see those safeguards continue to slip.
Yeah, it's baffling to me. I can't understand any rational reason why, if you're in some state or locale and you've had to put somebody in jail and you find out they're here illegally, why you wouldn't notify the federal authorities so they can. You do not want somebody that you're having to put in jail in your community. Now, especially when you look and they've, like this guy, he's been arrested like 10 times, you know, and so it's not surprising that he ends up shooting and killing a young college girl. But she should have never. And, you know, how many of these people are there around the country? We hear their names all the time that would still be here if it wasn't for this. So, and this is not some, I mean, I don't know if you did a poll on this. I don't know if it's above 90%, but I think all Americans are like, if somebody is a criminal and you're put in jail and you find out they're here illegally, notify the federal authorities. That's just a no-brainer. And the fact that they refuse to do that is mind-boggling.
Again, names like Laken Riley, or in this case, Sheridan Gorman in Chicago. Of course, Collin used to live in Chicago, and walking up and down the streets of Chicago increases my prayer life. I found that to be the case.
Absolutely.
But nevertheless, let's, if we can, get back to the fact that we do have a match on the table, and we're waiting for some people to make those phone calls.
Yeah, our thanks to Jeannie in Georgia. She put forward this $1,200. It's a dollar-for-dollar match, and it's going on right now. Every gift, every call, every click is doubled right now. 800-347-5151, pointofview.net. We've gotten 23 calls or clicks so far, so 77 to go. We're heading toward at least 100. This time today is about participation. Everybody doing something.
Going to take a break, but when we come back, whether or not men should participate in female sports. That's one of the issues we'll talk about, but right now, we need to hear you. Give us a call, 800-347-5151, 1-800-347-5151. We need some phone calls. We'll be right back.
Pro-trans frenzy in public education is supposedly fading. Early in his second term, President Trump issued several executive orders meant to protect against attempts to indoctrinate K-12 students into delusional gender ideologies. School districts who violate these directives and retain policies like allowing boys on women's sports teams and into women's private spaces risk losing federal education funding. But can we really expect public education bureaucrats to resist the pressure coming from activist groups on the left who exist to influence those who who influence the nation's children. Tyler O'Neill at the Daily Signal reports that the American School Counselor Association counts as members 42,000 of the nation's estimated 131,000 school counselors. The association releases guidance to the entire membership nationwide, so we ought to pay attention to what this organization is promoting under the banner of mental health and leadership. The ACSA's stated position on gender equity, removing bias and stereotypes for each and every student in school. What bias? What stereotypes? The same webpage provides a clue. It states, school counselors are vigilant to the harmful effects of stereotypical gender role expectations. So it's not surprising that in February of this year, ACSA held a webinar promoting a leadership program for young girls ages 11 to 15. It's the Lean In Girls program, developed by the foundation established by former Facebook Meta COO Sheryl Sandberg. The representative from Lean In Girls urged school counselors to adopt the program. Tyler O'Neill's Daily Signal piece includes an analysis of Lean In Girls' Facilitator Handbook, which recommends that actual biological facts about what a female is be questioned. For students who may feel uncomfortable with the label girl, the handbook lists resources from pro-trans and LGBTQ organizations. The handbook also promotes the teaching of critical race theory. Such radical indoctrination abuses the access school counselors have to our children. For Point of View, I'm Penna Dexter.
Restoring America's godly heritage. Point of View.
I think Point of View is a good investment for those Americans concerned about getting access to important information, the information that Judicial Watch brings about its anti-corruption and government watchdog work, and the information that Point of View brings about the activities of other conservatives, and again, bringing an alternative view to the media. That's what Point of View does.
Point of View. Restoring America's godly heritage.
Tom Fitton, who is the president of Judicial Watch, there's a man that's been very busy with all the different scandals and corruption along the way. But first of all, how are we doing on the match, Collin?
Well, we're so grateful for each and every gift. We've got a $1,200 dollar-for-dollar match on the board, $100 in so far. So we've still got $1,100 of that to go, but we've only got about 12 minutes left in this hour. I would love to see that $1,200 eaten up here in the next 12 minutes at 800-347-5151, 800-347-5151, pointofview.net. Let's hear from you right now.
Janet Wadler, of course, is the Vice President of Stewardship for Point of View up in Colorado, but she wanted to join us with a really encouraging story.
Yes, I do, Kirby. I just got a call from Jeff from Arkansas, and he has been listening to Point of View for many, many, many years and had never given. And when we concentrated on letting people know that we need every listener to call in, he stopped what he was doing, called in, joined our Truth team with a monthly gift, and gave a generous one-time gift. So, Jeff from Arkansas, thank you so very much.
Let me come to Liberty because if you are a first-time donor to Point of View, you get a Patriot Pack. Explain what that is.
Yeah, a few minutes ago I talked about the booklets, but there is a collection of 5 booklets here by Kirby that's called the Patriot Pack, including One Nation Under God. If you've ever gotten in an argument about the separation of church and state, or whether or not America had a Christian founding, you need this Patriot Pack. And if you are a first-time donor, you will get this Patriot Pack 5 booklets, which is just a wonderful resource, especially as we're in the 250th year of America.
Yeah, and that reminds me of the legacy of this ministry. 54 years this has been going on, and it's only here today because of people who've given before you. You're able to listen because someone gave before you. Are you able to give today for your kids, your grandkids, for others you may never meet? You have that opportunity today to give a legacy gift that will impact others for generations to come. 800-347-5151. Every gift right now doubled up to $1,200. And again, that number, 800-347-5151 or pointofview.net.
Liberty, we sometimes said if you want to get something done, you get a woman to do it. And it turns out that that the first woman to be the president of the Olympics, also the first African to be an individual who is the president of the Olympics, is Kirsten Coventry. Now, if you watch the Winter Olympics, you might remember she gave this very dynamic speech, but nevertheless, as a woman, she recognized something, and that is that now the International Olympic Committee is barring male athletes from competing against women in the Olympics, and that will take place in the Summer Games in Los Angeles. Long time coming, but finally got something done.
Yeah, about time. You know, it took a woman, I guess, to be in charge who gets it, as I assume, a female athlete, because if you want women to truly have equal opportunities, then that means they need to have safe spaces where they can compete against women, and that's fair. You know, I played basketball for 6 years throughout middle school and high school. Absolutely loved it. Often our coach would make us scrimmage with the boys team because they were faster and stronger, and that helped us to gain an edge over the other girls' teams that we would be playing. And so we were doing that in a friendly way as teammates. But there's clearly a difference. Everybody who has played a sport knows it. And it's important that women's rights are protected and that their spaces are protected. And like you said, this is a long time coming.
Kelly, they always talk about trust the science. She said this policy is based on science and on medical experts to talk about the benefit that men have of chromosome strength, power, endurance. And she says at the Olympic Games, even the smallest margins can be the difference between victory and defeat. So common sense breaking out all over the place.
Yeah, I don't think most of us needed science to figure this one out. I mean, I really think everybody's known this for a long time. And it's just a lot of people were scared to say anything. And, look, people were like, why would Satan push this argument? It's such a stupid argument. When you think of right from the beginning in Genesis, God made them male and female. Mm-hmm. I mean, he's going after the very essence of creation and God's different creation. What's amazing, and I think a little indicting for the Christian community is, I mean, it was going the wrong way, right? People were caving and people were letting these horrible things happen to girls. They were getting hit with volleyballs and being injured and all this stuff. And the guy, that theologian himself that really turned the tide on this is President Donald Trump. He said, we're not going to do that. And in fact, that campaign, that ad that ran in a lot of campaigns was about the issue of no men and women's sports. And it's a little bit shaming to the Christian community. Why didn't more Christian leaders stand up and say, no, this is wrong? It took Riley Gaines standing up, and it really is. It's a little bit of an indictment of a lack of courage by people, and I think that's a challenge to the Christian community. It doesn't really do a lot of good if you believe all the stuff in the Bible, but you have no courage to live any of it out.
Yes,
or to speak it, and so. Thank the Lord that he provided Donald Trump to lead and to get us back to the Genesis 1 that we all know is true. And this is a good thing, obviously. I mean, I think of all the state records of girls who have been wiped off by some of these men, boys. Good. Maybe we're close to the end of this. I have a feeling we're not. I have a feeling we're still going to have to stand up, but at least there's a victory here.
Well, let me take that on for just a minute, and then we'll get an update on how we're doing in terms of the match, because it does have a place where you can follow a link to the hundreds of medals that people have documented that women athletes or young girl athletes have lost. But also, what was so striking is later on you have the previous president of the International Olympic Committee who said, really, this idea of there just being men and women, XX and XY, that really doesn't work very well. Scientifically, it's not true anymore. So it shows you that, yes, this is a victory, but even though, as we talked about earlier in the week, woke is dead, it still has this possibility of like a zombie coming up again, doesn't it? So something to think about.
Vigilance is required to speak the truth.
Well, again, how are we doing, Collin?
We're doing great, and we've got about $300 remaining in this $1,200 dollar-for-dollar match. We're 5 minutes away from the top of the hour. We would love to see that $300 knocked off right away. Maybe you can help with that. Maybe a couple of you can do that. 800-347-5151, pointofview.net. And a reminder, if you have been blessed in a mighty way, God expects bigger things from those that he's given more to. And as you know, we're way behind where we want to be at this time. One of those larger gifts could really spur some others to activity. I want to encourage you to do that. A $5,000, a $7,500, a $10,000 gift. If you're able to do one of those, use those same numbers, 800-347-5151 or pointofview.net.
Going to take a break. When we come back, I want to get from Kelly a little bit of what can we do. We've had these victories. You might even during the break go to rfia.org, Restoring Faith in America, because we've had all these victories. Now what do we do? And I think that's another aspect of what Point of View is all about. We have these action items and the rest. But as we go to a break, if you've been waiting to make a phone call because you don't want to miss any content, perfect time to call. 800-347-5151, 1-800-347-5151. Please call right now. We're waiting for those calls. We'll be right back.
So have you joined the Truth Team yet? Point of View needs to hear from you. It is the final day of our Spring Truth Team Week, and we need to reach our $150,000 goal today. As you know, it's America's 250th anniversary this year. But to restore the godly heritage on which our great nation was founded, we need to act right now to help Americans regain a biblical worldview. When you join the Truth Team, you'll be one of Point of View's core supporters, equipping Americans everywhere with a biblical perspective on current events and issues that affect our daily life. Please, we need to hear from you today. Join the Truth Team, help us reach our goal, and most importantly, help restore America's godly heritage. Visit us right now at pointofview.net or call 1-800-347-5151. That's pointofview.net and toll free 1-800-347-5151.
Point of View will continue after this. Across America, live, this is Point of View. And now, Kirby Anderson.
Second hour, we're going to spend some time talking about how to put some shoe leather to some of the things we're talking about, how to make a difference in your community. Very good piece by Cal Thomas. He calls it the political instant replay. We'll explain more what that means in just a minute. Supreme Court decision that might come down in the future, but certainly a decision coming down right now out of one of the courts about social media. And we even have a Penedexter commentary about woke school counseling. So all sorts of things, Collin, that we talk about here on Point of View.
Always a plethora of topics to talk about, and oftentimes, again, things that just you're not hearing anywhere else. This is where you're going to hear it. Hey, we just were wrapping up a $1,200 dollar-for-dollar match from Jeannie in Georgia. You met that goal. We want to say thank you. We can't thank you enough for your participation, and we celebrate and we move on because Doc in Lufkin, Texas, Doc says, I want to encourage others to give. He's got a $1,200 dollar-for-dollar match he's putting on the board right now, so you can start calling on that. 800-347-5151, 800-347-5151. We'd really like to get as many people participating this hour as possible. I'd love to see at least 100. We're down to needing just 69, 31 in so far. Everybody doing something. You remember the old days? All skate, all swim, everybody in the pool. That's what we need today. Wherever you are, wherever you're listening, everybody doing something. $10, $30 a month, $1,000, or maybe one of those $5,000 or $10,000 gifts. 800-347-5151 or pointofview.net.
I was just thinking that $1,200 would be the same as $100 a month. And one of the other benefits you get, and I'll hold this up for those of you watching online, is the words that built America. Because in addition to the Outlook magazine, the booklets, even the book stops and everything else, we also have this book, which is just great. And we've talked about the fact that it has the Constitution, one in the original language, then sort of a translation, as well as the Federalist Papers, the Declaration of Independence, famous speeches, and all of the rest. So again, those are some of the gifts, and you can find out more about that by going to the website, pointofview.net. But I thought we'd bring in the president of Point of View, Warren Kelly, to tell us how we're doing and what we need to do to get to the final day of Truth Team.
This is our final day, and we have never been quite in this position, as you know, Kirby. We are, I believe, less than halfway to our goal in the last hour of the last day of Truth Team Week. So we really, really do need to hear from you. And let me, if I can take just a minute, a few years ago, we had a lady that wrote us a letter, said, I'm going to give to this organization, I'm going to give to that organization. I'm not going to give to Point of View because you guys just talk about the issues. These other organizations are doing something about the issues. And I would take exception to that. You know, yes, there's action points and things that we do, but Point of View helps shape the worldview of our listeners. And those listeners go on to do great things in some cases. Sometimes it's, smaller things, but just a few examples. Mike Huckabee, ambassador to Israel, used to listen to Point of View, started listening when he was in seminary. Robert Jeffress started listening to us when he was in high school. And these are people that say that we help shape their worldview, and they're doing the things they're doing because of Point of View. Michelle Bachman started listening when she's 19. Our own Kelly Shackelford started listening when he was in college. Janet Parshall, you all have heard her on the radio. She was a young housewife and listened to Point of View, and it helped shape her worldview and is largely responsible for what she's doing now. Rebecca Hagelin, you mentioned the other day, went on to be, listened as a young housewife, went on to be vice president of the Heritage Foundation. And I know we are short on time, so I don't want to keep going, but I could literally sit here all day and tell you stories about people whose lives were impacted, who then turned around. Maybe it's just that they impacted the lives of their children. Maybe it's they ran for school board or did something in their community, but some on a national stage. Your gifts make a difference in people's lives. And those people make a difference in our culture. So we really do need to hear from you. Your gifts are critically important to us, especially right now. So please let us hear from you.
Again, that number is 800-347-5151. And I think that's a perfect setup to the conversation with Kelly, because I know you had one of your staff come in after you had won one of your very significant cases. I think it was the Kennedy case, Coach Kennedy case, and said, well, I want to raise all this money to go out and do it. And you said, no, wait a minute. What we need to do, and that's why I'm encouraging people to go to RFIA, which stands for Restoring Faith in America. You've won case after case, and now you don't have to go and raise more money. We need to encourage the people listening right now to go out and use the liberty and the freedom that they now have.
Yeah, it really doesn't do any good for us to win Supreme Court cases and change 50 years of case law if nobody knows and nobody does anything. And I think there definitely are Point of View listeners that are as old as you and me, Kirby, who remember the days when we used to have nativity scenes up around Christmas and menorahs around Hanukkah. And we had faith was publicly displayed and was a part of our communities. And it was diverse. I mean, there's lots of denominations and lots of backgrounds, and there's synagogues and all this, but it was there. And that moral compass, that foundation is what America is really about. And that's been wiped clean somewhat because of these really horrible cases. And it was 50 years ago. The Lemon case was the leader of this. But we reversed that. And Coach Kennedy just a few years ago, we reversed that case. And so all these things can now come back. But it's up to people to bring them back into their own community. And so a lot of people were like, hey, I don't know what I can do. And so we tried to make it easy. We invited all the other groups. This is not about First Liberty. This is just about let's get faith back in our communities. And it's RFIA, Restoring Faith in America. And every month you get an email that says, here's something you can do in your community. It could be as simple as going to your city council now or your county commissioners and saying, hey, why don't we put up our nativity scene this year? And or why don't we put up our menorah for Hanukkah this year? Or, you name it. I mean, there's a long list. Why don't we bring the Ten Commandments back out that we put in the closet? And it's happening. It's happening all over the country. We're watching Ten Commandments go up. State lawn of Kentucky, Indiana started the process. We just did an installation out in Fort Worth outside of the courthouse there. It's beginning to happen across the country, but all the listeners can do this. And when one place does it, the neighbors are going to see it and they're going to go, oh, I didn't know we could do this. Mm-hmm. And they're going to bring faith back to America. And so I encourage them to do that.
I do want to talk with Liberty in just a few minutes when we maybe come back from the break about the action items that she puts together, as well as the podcast and a number of other things that you are supporting when you give. But we need to hear from people right now as we go to a break.
We do. Our friend Doc in Lufkin, Texas has provided $1,200 for a dollar-for-dollar match. $100 of that in so far, so $1,100 to go. We only have 46 minutes remaining in the live portion of Truth Team Week. We really need each and every one of you to take a moment, pray, ask the Lord what he'd have you do, and then give. It's biblical. We need to hear from you. Call right now, 800-347-5151.
We'll take a break, come back with more right after these important messages.
This is Viewpoints with Kirby Anderson.
Alyssa Blakemore explains why parents should read to their kids. That is what she does and encourages parents and grandparents to do the same. Research from last year showed that fewer parents actually read aloud to their children. A dismal 41% of 0 to 4-year-olds are read to frequently, down more than 20 percentage points from 2012. She has found that Gen Z parents now regard reading as more a subject to learn than a fun thing to do. The tradition of reading to your children is unfortunately fading and comes with a great cost. Reading aloud not only helps improve literacy and academic success, but it also plays a vital role in the development of emotional maturity. A child's imagination takes flight while reading stories by Tolkien and C.S. Lewis. They develop the ability to identify and sympathize with others in stories. They can enjoy the humorous misadventures of Paddington Bear and London's Underground. There are many benefits to involving themselves in these make-believe worlds. She also acknowledges that once a child learns to read, the shared literary adventures start to wane. For ages 5 to 7, only 36% are read to regularly at home. That figure drops to just 22% with 8 to 10-year-olds. That is why we need to take advantage of the opportunity to read to them at a young age. This collective immersion in story, she explains, can stimulate conversations between parent and child on so many important topics. She recognizes that life can become busy too quickly, so it is important to make the most of the time you can carve out time for reading. Sometimes it will feel tedious, but the reward will be great. I'm Kirby Anderson, and that's my point of view.
Go deeper on topics like you just heard by visiting pointofview.net. That's pointofview.net. Restoring America's godly heritage. Point of View.
Well, I really believe that Point of View does a tremendous service to the Christian church because Kirby is able to take complex issues, break them down so that we can all understand them, and then in addition to that, of course, provide the biblical framework and a response that we should have as believers. And I don't know of any program that is as contemporary, as up-to-date, and as handled as well as Kirby on Point of View. I think that those of us who benefit from Christian radio should be the very ones who support it. So I would encourage all those who are listening right now to make sure that they are in touch with Point of View And be sure to leave your gift, because together we can make a great difference.
Point of View, restoring America's godly heritage.
Dr. Erwin Lutzer, of course, the pastor of Moody Church at Moody Bible Institute. If you come to my home, you will see I have virtually an entire bookshelf of Erwin Lutzer books, of which we have so many. Of course, you've known him for many years as well,
Yes,
Collin.
yeah.
And we have a match on the table right now.
We do a $1,200 dollar-for-dollar match on the board, and so far $690 has come in, $510 remaining. So it's moving. Let's keep it moving quicker. If you don't want to give over the phone, which some people don't, you just don't want to talk to anybody, jump online, pointofview.net. It's safe, it's secure, takes about 2 or 3 minutes. 800-347-5151. We do have some great volunteers that are ready to take your call as well. Again, $1,200 dollar-for-dollar match, $510 remaining right now at 800-347-5151.
You know, one of the things I wanted to talk about for just a minute, Liberty, is, first of all, just amazing the common views that First Liberty and Point of View, separate organizations, but we have the same kind of views. We just talked a minute about restoring faith in America, but we also have a take action item that you have been writing and encouraging people to take action. And I've run into all sorts of people that have told me face to face, I never contacted my member of Congress, but you've made it so easy because all I have to do is go to your website, click a few times, and let them know how I feel on many of these issues.
Well, I think so many people want to make a difference. They want to do something to try to steer the culture back in the right direction. But you can't make a difference if you're not well informed and if you don't know how. And so one of the things that we do on Point of View and that I'm privileged to help with is put together those action alerts for contacting Congress specifically, which is something we should all be doing on a regular basis, but so many other things too, just the kinds of things that we talk about. Like, hey, you should be aware of this, and maybe you can contact someone in your local community. Maybe you can make a difference on this. And it's really neat when we receive letters and emails and testimonials and things like that from people who say, because I heard that program, I went and started an apologetics book club in my community. Or I went and I talked to my local school district about books that were in the library. Or, you know, I went and I started a ministry, or I got bolder about evangelizing. All these things that we hear that people were able to take action because they were listening.
One of the things we've also talked about is a focus on the next generation. That's why we have a next generation roundtable. Of course, you have the Know Why podcast. And Kelly, here's another similarity between Point of View and First Liberty. Your son and others have been involved in what's called F3, Future, Faith, and Freedom. The Future of Faith and Freedom, F3, is something you've developed because we recognize the future is in the younger people.
This is all about the next generation. And my son came to me and said, you know, all these ministries I always see, they talk about the next generation, but they really don't spend their time and effort and money there. And he said, I want to start something for the 20s to 40s. And who are raising their families, they're young professionals, they're out there. And, you know, they get out of college, there are no real groups or ways for them to be involved. And what's been amazing to me is how it not only has this exploded and just really growing all over the country, but especially in the places we would consider maybe darker. You know, Boston, they have Boston, New York, California. I mean, you name it. They have chapters now everywhere, and these people are coming together. And they actually love it. I mean, they have like 1 or 2 dinners a year. They dress up, they get together, but they're also doing things, and they're getting information on how to do that. So that is a great way. If you have somebody 20s to 40s, make sure they go to firstliberty.org and connect, or just go to F3, the Future of Faith and Freedom, and they can get involved. But we also, Kirby, have programs for fellowships, stuff on for college students. We do some real intense fellowships. We're trying to get the brightest, the leading people in the future into the program and getting them really informed before they get the PhD, before they go on to be the leader in D.C. or you name it. We can tell who a lot of those people are going to be. They're really talented. And so we have real competitive programs, but we bring them in. We bring the top thinkers, the top professors, and just really teach and really build into them as they go out to change our country for the good. So, I think we all know. I just don't want to be fighting for the next generation. I want the next generation standing with me fighting too.
Well said.
And that's what we're doing.
Again, you can go to our website, and there's a search engine. Just type in F3 initiative, and then you'll see all the interviews. And we did one just recently with Nathan and his buddy and a couple others, but I'll get to that another day. So let's talk about what we have on the table right now.
We've got about 36 minutes to go in the hour, 36 minutes, and so far we have $690 in on this $1,200 dollar-for-dollar match, still $510 to go, but every single one of those clicks or calls helps us drop the number further. Let me also say on our national goal for the full week, it's $150,000. Right now, we've got about $92,000 to go. Maybe you could take about $2,200, maybe $2,500. You could get us below that $90,000 to go mark. Maybe you're able to give a gift like that. Or many of you giving gifts of $10 or $30 a month. We had someone yesterday call and do something we've talked about, which is raise your monthly gift. Maybe you would take that monthly gift you're giving and just raise it to the next level. That's super helpful as well. 800-347-5151 or pointofview.net.
And after what you just said with 590, somebody could knock that all of that out if they just said, I'll do $50 a month.
There you go.
And you'd be done with that match, and you'd be on to the next one. So I know there's somebody out there that can do $50
I'm sure there is. And we're hoping there'll be some people that could give a little bit more.
Yep.
One of the other ones I thought I'd just bring up is Cal Thomas. And Liberty, one of the things that's interesting is that he's sort of looking ahead to the midterms, and we just had an Outlook magazine on that. And in some respects, he calls it the political instant replay. He could have called it the whole idea of Groundhog Day, because, you hear all the, if we elect these people, that's going to do with it. And he's really kind of cynical about whether or not this next election is going to change things, but then goes on to basically argue against himself, because he says, well, what are the Democrats going to run on? A platform of reopening the southern border, allowing more people from many nations to cross the border, to maybe allow males to be playing in female sports. So even though you may sometimes be a little bit frustrated that maybe the people you elected aren't doing everything you would like them to do, there are some consequences to who we elect in November.
Absolutely. I think Americans do get tired of the pendulum swing.
Right.
And you have to ask those questions. Okay, what do you want to swing back to? Let's not be reactionary, but think critically, because you don't want to resist something just because it's annoying you and do the opposite just because it's the opposite. But we really need to be thinking about these issues and understanding them and trying to move forward in a good way.
Kelly, I was just thinking about the fact you've been involved in the political arena for some time. And as he says, it doesn't take much to understand that if Democrats control the House, they're going to want to impeach Donald Trump. It doesn't take much to recognize they're going to want to spend more. They probably will want to try to get biological males back into female sports. And if you have any doubt about that, look at the difference between Donald Trump's first 4 years and then the 4 years under Joe Biden. And you have a pretty good idea where that would go.
You do. I mean, one of the things you realize is, which I don't think anybody wants, is if you were to turn the House and the Senate back to Democrats with a Republican president, they would probably start impeachment and all this kind of thing. Impeachment's really been abused. It was never supposed to be a political tool. It's there for something truly serious. And so it would just be our government would be a waste. I mean, nothing would happen. The other thing that highlights to me about, the midterms is judges. The appointment of judges. I think we're going to have a Supreme Court justice slot open up. And we're definitely going to have a lot of seats, probably over 100 seats that are filled for life that will affect every issue you care about. Okay, I don't care if it's life, religious freedom, business freedom, government control. You name the issue, come up with it. It will affect that, and the Senate has to confirm.
That's right.
And right now it's 53-47 in a more conservative way. It could easily move off that depending upon the election, and the quality of judges will change dramatically.
Well, let's take a break. These are the kinds of things we talk about on Point of View, and if you agree with the fact that we address those, we'd love to hear from you. 800-347-5151, 800-347-5151. We'll be right back.
Okay, so have you joined the Truth Team yet? Point of View needs to hear from you. It is the final day of our Spring Truth Team Week, and we need to reach our $150,000 goal today. As you know, it's America's 250th anniversary this year, but to restore the godly heritage on which our great nation was founded, we need to act right now to help Americans regain a biblical worldview. When you join the Truth Team, you'll be one of Point of View's core supporters, equipping Americans everywhere with a biblical perspective on current events and issues that affect our daily life. Please, we need to hear from you today. Join the Truth Team, help us reach our goal, and most importantly, help restore America's godly heritage. Visit us right now at pointofview.net or call 1-800-347-5151. That's pointofview.net and toll free 1-800-347-5151. Point of View will continue after this. You are listening to Point of View. The opinions expressed on Point of View do not necessarily reflect the views of the management or staff of this station. And now, here again is Kirby Anderson.
Back once again, we have just a half an hour left for the last day of the week for Truth Team, and we certainly do encourage you to make that phone call, 800-347-5151. We have a court case that came down on social media. We're going to talk about that in just a minute. But before we do so, Collin, you have been keeping track of how we're doing.
Yeah, 26 minutes remaining in the hour and 26 minutes remaining in Truth Team Week. That's all we have left. We've got this $1,200 dollar-for-dollar match on the board thanks to our friend Doc in Lufkin, Texas. And we have so far, I see we just went over it. So we must have gotten a couple of gifts dropped in there. $1,200, 9 gifts came in for a total of $1,880.
Yeah.
So we just passed that.
Great.
So thank you to each person who gave, and thank you to Doc and Lufkin for making that available. And I'll take a breath and give you the next one. May I do that while we're right here?
I was going to say, is he going to reach into his bag and pull out another one? I guess so.
Yeah, Randy called a couple of days ago, and we're rolling his in now. He wanted to make sure that his $1,500 were used to encourage others to give. So Randy in Randy in Georgia, thank you for your gift. And we've got a $1,500 dollar-for-dollar match on the table with only 25 minutes left. So not a lot of time, but there's plenty of dollars there to match your gift right now. 800-347-5151 or pointofview.net.
We have a number of people here ready to answer your phones, and of course we brought some extra people in there, and I look at the moment, someone just hung up, so that means there's a room for you to actually make that phone call. But again, let's go around the round table, because one of the things I wanted to get some thoughts on has to do with social media. Now, the other day, a Los Angeles jury actually held Meta, which of course is where we have Facebook and Google's YouTube, liable for what happened to a woman's personal troubles. The individual that argued that case is somebody we've had on the program before, but I'm not going to necessarily argue for whether this was a good verdict or not. Liberty, the bigger issue is this. We are starting to see that many of the things we have been warning about, and you have really been warning about in your Next Generation Roundtable, as well as the Know Why podcast, there are real dangers in social media, and parents and grandparents need to take note.
Absolutely. If this case does nothing other than raise awareness, then that is really important. And one of the key parts of the case is that they really focused on the devices, the platforms themselves, and the mechanism of how they work, not necessarily the content. So they're not being held liable for the content that appears on these social media platforms, but how the algorithms work. Because this isn't Facebook of 2008 or even 2016. If you open up, especially where the kids are these days, which is on the Reels tab, the short form videos, they will open up the app and they will immediately be bombarded with content from people they do not follow. And the whole goal of these companies is to keep users on for as long as possible so that they will see ads. That's how they make money. And so they keep track of the milliseconds of how long you will pause to look at a certain video or image before scrolling. and then they'll feed you more of that content. And that leads people, especially young people who are a lot more prone to addiction, into deeper and deeper and more extreme rabbit holes that can be very harmful. So I encourage people, I mean, this is really not an option, I think, for Christians, parents and grandparents, anybody that works with kids. You have to be educated about this. I've interviewed Claire Morrell on Point of View, who wrote The Tech Exit recently. It's a wonderful resource. Jonathan Haidt's The Anxious Generation is another one. And you really need to understand how these platforms are designed to manipulate people's brains. And kids' brains are just not developed enough to handle that. So parents have to be aware. So I'm glad this is in the news and more people are learning about this.
So again, just a very significant warning that I know, Kelly, you and your wife have been watching your children and grandchildren. You're paying attention to this as well.
Well, absolutely. And you know, the one of the rumors I'd heard for years, I think you all have probably heard it too, is that the people in Silicon Valley that came up with all of this have never allowed their kids on these devices, because they understood that they weren't healthy. And so now the country is understanding. I mean, you have school districts across the country, in fact, entire states that are, you know, they're not allowing, you know, these in the schools, or they have to be put away or whatever. So people are catching on, but you know, they're very addictive, and it's something that you know, we haven't even added to this AI.
Yeah.
You know, now you know, add AI to that and what it can do and what it can learn about how to manipulate you, your children, your grandchildren. Really, really dangerous. And so we've got things that are so powerful that people don't understand. I do think there is a, you know, it's kind of like I heard somebody say just the other day, and I thought this is a really good point. And this is not just about social media. It's even about foreign countries and their abuse of social media. And the person said, we've been telling, you know, regular Americans and parents and all this that they need to do their job. And he said, what a ridiculous thing to say. They have no idea what's going on here. Said it's the American government's responsibility to make sure that people understand what is being attempted on them from these other countries and all this thing. And so there's really a need for better education and more intelligence to be shared so that the American citizen can be prepared.
You know, we talk about some of these very, very important cases before the Supreme Court on religious liberty, but if you look at some of the cases right now, there are at least two categories of cases that reaffirm some of the things we've talked about. This one, of course, very significant about social media, but let me go back to the one in New York. A woman at the age of 16 has a double mastectomy. The New York court awards her $2 million, and it's really the first successful medical malpractice lawsuit. And we've been warning about the transgender issues. We've been warning about the social media issues. And in some respects, the courts are starting to catch up.
Absolutely. There was a really disturbing Supreme Court case where they did not take up.
Yes.
It showed.
Glad you brought that up.
That Facebook, you know, Meta, all these, they were actually being threatened by government officials, and it was causing them to censor American citizens, and the court didn't take it. And which I thought was a horrible decision. But there was just a settlement in the last few days where actually those groups all agreed that they would not, part of the settlement, they have an agreement that the government, these different agencies specifically, would not, because it would violate the law for them to threaten these companies to censor a citizen's free speech rights. And so we're getting some headway, but it's been really dangerous because the federal law gave them immunity.
Yes. And
when you give people, I hate the idea of giving people immunity, because when people have immunity, there's no responsibility, and that was a huge mistake. And now they have such power that it's hard to get around that immunity. And what Liberty was just talking about, that lawsuit, they found a way to get around it because they didn't go to content. They went to the platform and how to operate it themselves. But these tech companies have more money than most countries in the world. So they have a lot of power. And so this is a huge issue for every believer.
I'm glad you brought that up. That was one of the articles I was going to post, but then I thought, well, we got too many articles. But that settlement is also a victor for free speech as well. So, Collin, as we've said before, you just don't hear these kinds of conversations anywhere else.
I'm just sitting here enjoying the conversation because, again, you hear just the snippets, just the headlines of these things. And here every day on Point of View, you dig deep into these topics and you really get to hear what's going on behind the scenes. It's so fantastic. And again, with one of the best hosts in America, Kirby Anderson. 800-347-5151. Final hour of Truth Team Week. In fact, we're down to 17 minutes remaining in this hour. We have a $1,500 dollar-for-dollar match on the board right now. I know we've got some people talking on the phone. We're going to add that in, see where we are. Lots of folks just called and gave. Janine in South Carolina, Jean in Georgia, Cheryl in California, Deborah, Ohio, Rebecca, Georgia, James, California, Carolyn, South Carolina, Karen in Illinois, Mary in Georgia, Greg in Minnesota, and Jamie in South Carolina. Thanks to each and every one of you. We cannot thank you enough. But if we haven't heard from you, now's your time. 800-347-5151. $1,500 dollar-for-dollar match on the board.
I just mentioned that those of you listening online will hear Penna Dexter's commentary, which we play right now. Woke School Council, and I'm going to tie that to a case that Kelly's been dealing with, as well as one of her previous commentaries. So that, again, gets us into this issue of gender equity and a variety of other topics. Again, one of those topics that you don't hear very often, even in conservative media. They sort of stay away from that, but there's no issue off the table here on Point of View, so we'll be talking about that in just a minute. But as we go to a break, so that you don't miss anything, give us a call, 800-347-5151. As Collin likes to do, he's counting us down. I think, what do we have, 16 minutes left?
16 minutes. Call now.
I feel like we have a lot more to do, but we are running out of time. So give us a call, 800-347-5151. We'll be right back.
Pro-trans frenzy in public education is supposedly fading. Early in his second term, President Trump issued several executive orders meant to protect against attempts to indoctrinate K-12 students into delusional gender ideologies. School districts who violate these directives and retain policies like allowing boys on women's sports teams and into women's private spaces risk losing federal education funding. But can we really expect public education bureaucrats to resist the pressure coming from activist groups on the left who exist to influence those who influence the nation's children? Tyler O'Neill at the Daily Signal reports that the American School Counselor Association counts as members 42,000 of the nation's estimated 131,000 school counselors. The association releases guidance to the entire membership nationwide, so we ought to pay attention to what this organization is promoting under the banner of mental health and leadership. The ACSA's stated position on gender equity, removing bias and stereotypes for each and every student in school. What bias? What stereotypes? The same webpage provides a clue. It states, school counselors are vigilant to the harmful effects of stereotypical gender role expectations. So it's not surprising that in February of this year, ACSA held a webinar promoting a leadership program for young girls ages 11 to 15. It's the Lean In Girls program, developed by the foundation established by former Facebook Meta COO Sheryl Sandberg. The representative from Lean In Girls urged school counselors to adopt the program. Tyler O'Neill's Daily Signal piece includes an analysis of Lean In Girls' Facilitator Handbook, which recommends that actual biological facts about what a female is be questioned. For students who may feel uncomfortable with the label girl, the handbook lists resources from pro-trans and LGBTQ organizations. The handbook also promotes the teaching of critical race theory. Such radical indoctrination abuses the access school counselors have to our children. For Point of View, I'm Penna Dexter.
Restoring America's godly heritage. Point of View.
Hey, greetings everyone. Lieutenant Colonel Alan West here, United States Army retired. And I think it's so important that we realize that there is a dedicated effort to make sure that this type of voice is not heard. This type of voice is censored. And what's another one of our rights that we have in the First Amendment? It's the freedom of speech. It's the freedom of expression. It's the freedom of the press. It's the right to petition our government for redress of grievances. And if we lose a platform like Point of View, what do we have? Where do we go? These are good people. This is an exceptional program. This is a needed and necessary program for us and the body of Christ. I mean, how much more do you need to see in our country to not understand that we have got to get this message out? And you're here to support a platform that is getting the message out. You're here to support a man and a ministry that's putting themselves out there. That is the essence of being strong and of good courage. So I'm telling you right now, break out your checkbook, break out your credit card, and support this ministry. Because if you don't, I'll find you and I'll make you do push-ups.
Point of View, restoring America's godly heritage.
Alan West always gets a smile when we talk about that. So again, he is going to visit you if you haven't given, so that he can make you drop down and give me 10. But nevertheless, we're not asking for that. We're just asking for people cheerfully to give to this ministry.
Yeah, 11 minutes remaining in the live portion of this Truth Team Week. And really, it would be great to see every one of the phones filled right now and the internet just light up. We've got a $1,500 dollar-for-dollar match on the board, $450 in, $1,050 still remaining in this dollar-for-dollar match. And again, you can do that at pointofview.net and just click through. It takes just a couple of minutes, or call one of our wonderful volunteers, 800-347-5151, 800-347-5151.
One of the benefits, of course, of actually even going to the website Point of View is, of course, you have my daily commentary, also Penna Dexter's once a week, and this one on woke school counseling. Kelly, I thought I'd come to you for just a minute because she's talking about this American School Counseling Association, where in many cases they're promoting gender equity. Anybody's been listening to you. We're talking about a young boy who was supposed to read a gender affirming, and I'm being kind of nice and gracious to kindergartners. You have a first grade teacher who said, I can't read that, and was reassigned. You have discovered that there's a whole network out here still promoting the pro-trans agenda. Is that fair?
Yeah, and it's pretty clear now at the Supreme Court that you cannot do that with young children without, number one, notifying the parents. So it is not something you can do secretly, which is what is happening or was happening. And number two, you have to, if you do notify parents, there has to be a right to a religious exemption. So the case law is very clear at this point. So any school district that's doing this kind of stuff or allowing this kind of stuff is looking for a pretty hefty lawsuit, and it won't go well for them after the decisions that have been handed down. Not just Mahmoud, which came down last year, but recently there was a case, I don't know if you remember this one, out of California, and it came up to the Supreme Court because what they were doing there is they were transitioning people's children without notifying them.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And this was like the policy. Mm-hmm. And the Supreme Court, in no uncertain terms, said, And so it's very clear that the authority of parents and the requirement to notify them, if anything in this kind of arena of gender ideology is going on with children.
You know, and I'm just thinking, Liberty, it's this fifth grader, Shay, who was told that I'm supposed to read this book, My Shadow is Pink, to kindergartners. And here he knows at the age of 12, something's not right here, and stands up for those issues. We have, of course, one that Kelly's been talking about, a first grade teacher that says, I know I can't teach this, so I'll get this other teacher to teach it, but that's not good enough. And it just shows you that there are individuals right now trying to still promote this pro-trans agenda, and you've been talking about that on your podcast.
Yeah, you know, we've had some interviews that really to help people understand why. And like you said earlier, Kelly, and maybe it was during a break, but it goes back to Genesis. It goes back to how we were created and helping people understand that. And if we don't have that foundation, then we can't effectively fight the lies that the culture is trying to push. And something else that Kelly said earlier was that, you know, Christians, when it came to like men playing in women's sports, they should have been taking the lead on that. And here you have a 12-year-old who is becoming a leader and was bold enough in his school to speak out against something that he did not in good conscience feel like he could do and stand up for biblical truth. And so if that's not a motivation for us to all stand up and do the right thing, then I don't know what is.
And he was 11 when he did
Wow.
this.
Yeah, that's right.
He was 12 by the time he gave his talk,
That's true.
and
Yeah.
the Religious Liberty Commission that the president had asked him to come up. 11 years old. And not only that, the school responded by holding a Pink Out the Hate Day
Oh, I know.
to bully him and then one other student that had religious objections. So this is what some of these kids are having to go through, but they're standing their ground, and we just got to, it's why we have to speak up. We can't, this should not be happening to children across the United States.
Well, and again, you're finding out, as Penna talks about here, this whole group of counselors, you're finding out that certain types of special charter type schools, and so if nothing else, there's a very good argument, Liberty, for homeschooling, or at least if you're going to have your kids in the public schools, check it out, because we're finding out some things that even the parents don't know, because they're actually have, matter of fact, the administrators and the educators are hiding it from the parents.
Yeah, absolutely. Not all school districts are created equal, I guess. And so it really does take investigation. And I have some of my very best friends that work as public school teachers, and they do a great job. But you have to look at what's going on at the district level, what the administration is pushing, what the counselors are pushing, because just because it was a certain way in one school or one school district doesn't mean it's going to be the same in another. And parents have to make informed decisions about where they're sending their kids.
So again, we only have a few minutes left, and it's about time to find out how we're going to finish off.
Yeah, 5 minutes remaining, and we have $750 in on that $1,500 dollar for dollar match. So we have $750 to go. Maybe you could give one of those gifts of $50 a month, and another person could give $30 a month. It'd be knocked out. Still looking maybe for one of those first gifts of $5,000 or $10,000 if you're able to give at that level. Everybody doing something. And a reminder, just 5 minutes remaining in the live portion. We want to remind you, as the phones go off, we still have volunteers that will be answering your calls. You can click in over the weekend on pointofview.net. Don't think that you can't give when the day ends today, but it will end for the live time together. 800-347-5151, 800-347-5151. Again, thanks to Randy in Georgia for this $1,500 dollar for dollar match. Now just $700 remaining. What part could you play in knocking that out right now? Pointofview.net or 800-347-5151.
Well, Collin, I first of all want to say thank you for being with me all week here
My
and
pleasure.
enduring all of that we put you through. But again, that has been very great. And again, you're not looking for things to do, but I always appreciate you giving us an entire week.
Absolutely.
Kelly is certainly not looking for something to do on Friday. As a matter of fact, he has a major fundraising event tomorrow. But Kelly, thank you for being here. And Liberty, you're going to actually be hosting on Monday.
That's right.
And then we're later in the week going to do archaeology with Titus Kennedy. Gordon Chang's going to be with us talking about China and a variety of other topics. But most importantly, we're just about going off the air. So let me first of all encourage you to still call those numbers, 800-347-5151, 1-800-347-5151, or go to the website pointofview.net. We'll let you know how we did on Monday. Most importantly, I want to thank Megan and Steve for their help behind the scenes. Enjoy the weekend. Watch some basketball. See you on Monday.
Okay, so have you joined the Truth Team yet? Point of View needs to hear from you. It is the final day of our Spring Truth Team Week, and we need to reach our $150,000 goal today. As you know, it's America's 250th anniversary this year, but to restore the godly heritage on which our great nation was founded, we need to act right now to help Americans regain a biblical worldview. When you join the Truth Team, you'll be one of Point of View's core supporters, equipping Americans everywhere with a biblical perspective on current events and issues that affect our daily life. Please, we need to hear from you today. Join the Truth Team, help us reach our goal, and most importantly, help restore America's godly heritage. Visit us right now at pointofview.net or call 1-800-347-5151. That's pointofview.net and toll free 1-800-347-5151.
Point of View is produced by Point of View Ministries.